The grand ballroom shimmered beneath chandeliers that looked like frozen fireworks, each crystal catching flashes from cameras that never stopped clicking. Maya stood near the edge of it all, her hands clenched around a glass of champagne she couldn't afford to spill. She didn't belong here, not among the silk gowns and silver laughter, but her art had been featured in the charity auction, and that was supposed to mean something. Yet all meaning evaporated the moment she saw him, her ex, Daniel, standing across the room with his fiancée, glowing with pride and polished perfection. His smirk was sharp, cutting through the crowd like a blade meant only for her. He approached, his voice dripping with the same arrogance she once mistook for charm. "Maya, didn't expect to see you here. Still painting, feelings?" His fiancée laughed politely, her diamond ring flashing, mocking. Maya forced a brutal smile, her words trapped somewhere between anger and humiliation. The room suddenly felt too small, too loud, and too cruel. Cameras turned their attention toward them, sensing drama. She could almost hear the whispers forming. Then, out of nowhere, a voice cut through the noise, calm, smooth, and commanding. "Actually," it said, "she's with me." Maya turned and found herself staring at Aisha Khan, the Aisha Khan, billionaire, philanthropist, and every headline's favorite mystery. Aisha stood with effortless confidence, every inch of her exuding quiet power. Before Maya could even breathe, Aisha stepped closer, the air between them crackling with something neither of them could name. She took Maya's trembling hand and, with a daring smile, slid a glittering diamond ring onto her finger. Gasps swept across the room like wind through glass. Daniel's face paled, his fiancée froze mid-smirk, and the cameras turned with renewed hunger. Aisha's words floated like silk, wrapping around Maya and shielding her from the storm. "She's my fiancée," she said, her tone soft but certain, as if this were the most natural truth in the world. Maya's mind spun, a fake engagement, a billionaire's whim, a performance to save her pride. She wanted to pull away, to correct the lie, but then Aisha's thumb brushed against her hand, a touch light enough to feel accidental, yet warm enough to be dangerous. Their eyes met, and for a fleeting moment, the world blurred. The music, the chatter, the cameras, they all faded. All that existed was the weight of the ring on her finger and the unfamiliar flutter in her chest. Aisha leaned in, her voice a whisper only Maya could hear. "You looked like you needed rescuing." Maya managed a breathless laugh, though her heart was no longer steady. "And what does a billionaire get out of saving a stranger?" Aisha smiled, her gaze lingering with quiet curiosity. "Who said you're a stranger?" In that single heartbeat, something began, not a lie, not yet love, but the spark of a story neither of them had planned to write. The morning light poured through the tall glass walls of Aisha's office, painting golden streaks across the marble floor. The city hummed below, restless, alive, but inside, everything felt still. Aisha sat behind her sleek desk, her expression perfectly composed, a portrait of control. Across from her, Maya shifted in her seat, her heart fluttering in a rhythm that had nothing to do with the city's pulse. Between them lay a folder, crisp papers, cold ink, and the weight of an arrangement that would change everything. Aisha cleared her throat, her voice calm and deliberate. "This contract is straightforward," she said, sliding the papers toward Maya. "You'll play the part of my fiancé for 6 months. Public appearances, events, interviews. In exchange, I'll sponsor your art studio, full funding, no questions asked." Her tone carried the precision of someone used to getting what she wanted, yet beneath it was something softer, almost cautious. Maya looked up, meeting her eyes. "And if I say no?" she asked. Aisha's lips curved faintly, not quite a smile. "Then you walk away, and we pretend this meeting never happened." For a moment, Maya considered doing just that. But then she thought of her half-finished canvases, the rent due, the way her dreams had begun to fade into excuses. This offer, strange as it was, felt like a door being cracked open by fate itself. She picked up the pen. "All right," she whispered. "Let's sign our little fairy tale." The soft scratch of pen against paper filled the room. When it was done, Aisha extended her hand, professional and poised. Maya hesitated, then took it. The handshake should have been routine, but it wasn't. A spark, subtle yet undeniable, flickered between their palms. It wasn't electricity, not exactly, but something more human. A pulse. A promise neither of them had made aloud. Aisha blinked once, as if trying to dismiss it, while Maya looked away quickly, her cheeks warming. "You'll receive the details from my assistant," Aisha said, her voice steady but quieter now. "Our first public appearance is next week." Maya nodded, slipping the contract into her bag. Yet as she rose to leave, she turned back. "You know," she said softly, "I've painted cities before, but yours, it feels different." Aisha tilted her head. "How so?" Maya smiled faintly. "It hides its loneliness behind glass." The words lingered long after she left. Aisha stood by the window, watching Maya disappear into the crowd below. For years, her life had been a series of negotiations, calculated, contained. But this was something her spreadsheets couldn't quantify. She looked at her reflection in the glass, her own guarded eyes staring back. Somewhere beneath all her control, a question stirred quietly: what happens when a contract begins to feel like destiny? And for the first time in years, Aisha didn't have an answer. The city glimmered that night, drenched in golden light and champagne laughter. Maya adjusted her bracelet, reminding herself for the 100th time, it was all pretend. Just a performance, a careful illusion. The billionaire's fiancé. The girl on Aisha Rahim's arm. Cameras followed them like shadows, eager for another headline, another shot of the perfect couple. Aisha leaned closer as they entered the ballroom, her perfume, jasmine and quiet confidence, brushing against Maya's senses. "Smile," she whispered, her voice low, intimate. "They're watching." Maya smiled. But it wasn't for the cameras. Every event became a dance between truth and make-believe. At charity dinners, Aisha would pull out Maya's chair, her fingers grazing the back of Maya's neck, too casual to be scripted, too tender to be fake. At art launches, they stood shoulder to shoulder, pretending to discuss the paintings while their eyes met in the reflection of the glass frames. The world saw a billionaire's fiancé and her lover. Maya saw something fragile blooming in the spaces between words, in the laughter that came too easily, in the touches that lingered too long. Aisha had this way of whispering things only Maya could hear, jokes, half-complaints, sweet nonsense that made her heart stutter. It felt like being in on a secret the world would never understand. And maybe that's what made it dangerous. Because every time Aisha leaned in close, Maya forgot where the act ended. She forgot the cameras, the people, the reason she was even there. All she saw was Aisha's eyes, soft, sharp, and unguarded, like they were telling a story no one else was meant to read. One night, during a gala under fairy lights, Aisha's hand found hers beneath the table. It wasn't for show, there were no cameras then, no audience. Just a quiet moment in the dark. Maya froze, her heart a mess of questions she couldn't voice. But Aisha didn't move away. Her thumb brushed over Maya's knuckles, slow, steady, like a silent confession. And Maya, against all reason, didn't pull back. That night, when they returned to their car, Aisha's laughter filled the silence. "You play your role too well," she teased. Maya smiled faintly, turning her face to the window so Aisha wouldn't see the truth flicker across her eyes. "So do you," she whispered. But later, alone in her apartment, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere between the fake smiles and whispered jokes, something had shifted. Pretend had begun to feel real, dangerously real. And as she replayed the way Aisha's hand had fit perfectly into hers, she realized that maybe the biggest lie of all wasn't the engagement. Maybe it was telling herself she didn't care. Because in every laugh, every look, every heartbeat shared under the guise of performance, Maya was already falling. And neither of them seemed ready to stop pretending. The night was colder than usual, or maybe it just felt that way. Maya's voice trembled as she stood by the doorway, eyes glistening with a fury that was really heartbreak in disguise. "It was supposed to be fake," she screamed, the words slicing through the silence like shattered glass. Aisha didn't move, didn't speak. Her pride rooted her in place, even as something inside her began to crumble. The city stretched out behind Maya, glowing with a million lights, but none of them could guide her through the storm brewing inside her chest. She turned away, her heels clicking against the marble floor, each step echoing like a countdown to goodbye. Aisha wanted to say something, anything, but her throat closed around the truth. It wasn't supposed to be real, and yet, somehow, it was the realest thing she had ever felt. The door slammed, and the faint scent of jasmine lingered in the air, the same perfume Maya had worn since the day they met. It was unbearable now, a ghost of warmth in a room gone cold. Aisha sank onto the couch, her fingers tracing the ring that had started it all, the symbol of a lie that had turned into something dangerously close to love. Outside, Maya's tears blurred the city lights into smudges of gold and blue. She hated herself for crying, for caring, for letting Aisha mean this much. It was supposed to be pretend, a business arrangement, a convenient facade. But somewhere between the staged smiles and whispered secrets, between the mock dates and real touches, she had fallen. And now, walking away was the only thing that made sense, and the only thing that didn't. Back in the penthouse, Aisha finally stood, pacing restlessly, her reflection in the window looking like a stranger. She had always been the one in control, calm, collected, untouchable. But tonight, she was just a woman who had let the right person slip away because she was too scared to admit she wanted her to stay. Pride, she realized, had a cruel way of disguising itself as strength. Maya stopped at the edge of the street, phone buzzing in her hand. It was Aisha. She looked at the screen for a long moment, breath trembling. But she didn't answer. She couldn't. Some goodbyes don't need words, they just linger in the space between what could have been and what never will. Back in the silence of the penthouse, Aisha stared at the unopened message she had sent, "Come home." Not because of the deal. Because I can't breathe without you. But Maya never saw it. The night swallowed her in its quiet ache, and Aisha sat alone beneath the dim city glow, realizing too late that love, once denied, doesn't vanish, it just waits in the shadows, hoping for one more chance. And so, the night ended, not with closure, but with the haunting ache of almost. The almost confession. The almost forgiveness. The almost goodbye. The soft hum of chatter filled the hall, the glimmer of chandeliers dancing across polished marble floors. It was just another event, another night where smiles were painted on, laughter rehearsed, and appearances meant everything. Maya had promised herself this would be the last time. She wasn't supposed to be here anymore. Not after everything. She'd come only to return the ring, the same ring that had once been a symbol of a lie so convincing, even she had started to believe it. The fake engagement, the staged affection, the public whispers of a love story that was never meant to be. It had all been for convenience, or at least that's what she'd told herself. But there she was, clutching the ring in her trembling hand, her heart heavier than it had been in months. Across the room, Aisha looked radiant, laughing among a group of people who adored her charm and poise. Maya tried to remind herself that none of it was real, that what they shared was a contract, a cover-up, a temporary illusion. Yet, the ache in her chest refused to listen. Every stolen glance, every gentle touch Aisha had given her during their charade had left fingerprints on her soul. Maya took a deep breath and started walking toward her. But before she could reach Aisha, a voice from the crowd sliced through the air, sharp with mockery. "Oh look, the pretend fiancé decided to show up." The laughter that followed was cruel, echoing louder than it should have. Maya froze, every muscle tightening. She had been humiliated before, but this felt different. This felt like exposure, like every truth she'd tried to bury was suddenly on display. Before she could utter a single word, Aisha's laughter stopped. Her chair scraped against the floor as she stood, eyes blazing with something fierce and unshakable. "She's not pretend," Aisha said, her voice trembling, but her conviction cutting through the noise like lightning. "She's mine. The room went silent. Every head turned, every breath seemed to vanish. Maya's heart raced wildly as Aisha crossed the distance between them, slow, steady, unstoppable. Her eyes softened when they met Maya's, her expression shifting from fire to tenderness. Without hesitation, Aisha cupped Maya's face with both hands, her thumb brushing away a tear that had escaped unnoticed. And then, before Maya could think, before doubt could whisper its cruel words, Aisha kissed her. It wasn't rushed or for show. It was gentle, certain, and heartbreakingly real. Cameras flashed, gasps rippled through the crowd, but for once, none of it mattered. The world could watch, judge, or spin its stories, but this moment belonged to them. When they finally pulled apart, Maya's eyes glistened with both disbelief and relief. What had started as a lie had found its truth, not in secrecy, not in silence, but in the courage to love openly. In that one kiss, the pretense died, and something breathtakingly real was born.